You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making the 49ers Report a part of your NFL Draft weekend. Speaking of the 2023 NFL Draft, we went live for day 2 of the draft. We're going to be going live for day 3 of the NFL Draft as well right here on the channel. Make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications, and join us. But also, on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel, if you want to get informed on every single pick throughout every single round on day 3 and the culmination of this great event, which is really taking over America, subscribe to our main Chat Sports YouTube channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv. So the Niners making 3 picks on day 2. They had to trade up to number 87 to take the safety out of Penn State and Ji'Ayir Brown. We already talked about this at length here on the YouTube channel, but let's expand our thoughts on Ji'Ayir Brown. You can go back, watch that video, of course. We'll inform you on what that pick meant, but I really like the selection to really summarize my opinions here. I think Ji'Ayir Brown is a very instinctual player who can play right away given the experience that he's had at the college level. I really like his versatility and how Steve Wilks is going to be able to use him in a variety of ways. He can play deep safety. He can line up in the slot. You can put him in the box. You can send him home on blitz packages. But what I most like about Ji'Ayir Brown, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is the fact that he has a knack for making big plays. Now, I had Ji'Ayir Brown going to the Niners in a couple of my mock drafts, and there's a couple of reasons behind that. You have Talanoa Hufanga. You drafted him in the 5th round back in 2021. He made an all-pro team in his 2nd year in the National Football League. You brought back Deshaun Gibson, who's a marvelous story, right? Prior to last year, you signed him to the practice squad because Jimmy Ward was injured. Jimmy Ward continued to be hurt, so you elevated him to the 53-man roster. He played so well while Jimmy Ward was out that the Niners did not want to take him off the field. So they put Jimmy Ward at slot nickel corner, and that's why Deshaun Gibson continued to play that other safety role opposite of Talanoa Hufanga. And honestly, while Hufanga was an all-pro caliber player, Deshaun Gibson was also an all-pro caliber player. That gave you a great safety tandem. But Gibson only signed a 1-year deal, so he's not going to be along for the long haul. So that's why I thought it was important going into this draft that you had to draft a safety to give Talanoa Hufanga a running mate for the future. And in Ji'Ayir Brown, I believe that you get that guy. You look at the numbers, he can play in the box, slot, deep safety. He can offer you very similar attributes to what Jimmy Ward brought you as a safety in this defense. You lose Jimmy Ward in free agency. You replace him in the slot with Isaiah Oliver, who picked off Jimmy Garoppolo in that game against the Atlanta Falcons this past year. Him and Samuel Womack will be good slot players for you in 2023. But in the meantime, Ji'Ayir Brown is a guy who you can use at safety and in that slot role. While he might lack some athleticism, people were saying the same thing about Talanoa Hufanga, and the receipts are there. I had said at the time, Hufanga is a football player. I love the selection in the 5th round at a USC because he can diagnose plays very quickly. Ji'Ayir Brown, very similar in that regard. Now, the Niners did make a surprising pick with the 99th overall selection in this draft. They took a kicker in the 3rd round, 99th overall, which is the earliest that a kicker has been taken since 2016 when Roberto Aguayo was selected by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Jake Moody. A lot of people are fired up about this pick because it doesn't make a lot of sense. The Niners had traded for Zane Gonzalez, non-guaranteed contract, and now they draft Jake Moody. He has a big leg. He is a very clutch kicker. Our boss here, James Yoder, is a diehard Michigan fan. He hosts the Michigan Football Report. He had said, anytime there was a big kick to be made, Jake Moody came through. He hit a 57-yarder in the college football playoff semifinal, and he has a knack for making some of those big kicks. You're moving on here from Robbie Gould, who was as good as gold, and now you go with Money Moody here, which is very interesting because Robbie Gould had never missed a kick in his playoff career. Jake Moody does not have that same level of consistency. But what Jake Moody brings you is the clutch gene and the ability to hit deep kicks. Clutch kicker who never missed an extra point in his career. He can drill from 50 plus, but not great results there. He should be able to handle kickoffs at the NFL level, and I believe that he can handle kickoffs at the NFL level, and that's also where Robbie Gould kind of cost you. Didn't have a big leg, which is why Kyle Shanahan elected to punt on some instances, but also in some cases too. He did not result in a kickoff with a touchback. So Jake Moody, controversial pick at number 99 overall. More picks to get to because we're going to tell you about a tight end prospect who the Niners drafted, who I really, really like and could be the future George Kittle replacement. But before we get there, today's show sponsored by ZBiotics. It's late at night. ZBiotics can work for you at any given time. You can get 15% off by using the promo code CHATSPORTS at zbiotics.com/chatsports. What is ZBiotics? Let's face it. On a night like tonight, after y'all hit me with a bunch of super chats in which we're closing in on $2,000 in donations, I don't bounce back well the next day, like tomorrow when we have to be here early for the day 3 of the NFL draft. That is until I found ZBiotics. Pre-alcohol probiotic. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works, and the scientific aspect of this, really fascinating. So when you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down, and it's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it the most. All you have to do, drink ZBiotics before drinking alcohol and drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Give it a try for yourself at zbiotics.com/chatsports to get 15% off your first order when you use the code CHATSPORTS at checkout. ZBiotics is balanced and backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use the code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you to ZBiotics for sponsoring today's show. So the last pick that the Niners made on day 2, before we shift gears to day 3, 101 overall in round 3, it's Cameron Latu. So in my mock draft, I wanted the Niners to take Ji'Ayir Brown. They took him. In previous draft analysis and mock drafts, I had talked about Cameron Latu. The Niners take him. At some point, you have to think about replacing George Kittle. He's under contract for the next couple of years, but at a very tall asking price. And for Cameron Latu, I'm talking 3 years down the road, maybe 4 years, depending on what happens with George Kittle. He can be your George Kittle replacement. This guy is an athletic freak at 6'4", and he has some great weight to his disposal. And when he came to Alabama, he was looked at as an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman who made the switch to tight end. He's 242 pounds, but I think he moves very, very well given that size at nearly 6'5" and 242 pounds. He was often used as a security valve for Bryce Young last year. Down the seam, he can run some routes to the outer numbers, but you're now looking at a situation in which San Francisco doesn't really have a lot of depth at that tight end spot. They've had Charlie Warner. They've had Ross Dwelly. I believe that Cameron Latu is a better backup tight end than those aforementioned backups. This past year with Alabama, his numbers will not jump off the screen at you with 30 receptions, 377 yards, 4 touchdowns, and average yards per catch of 12.6. But like Ji'Ayir Brown, which I talked about a little bit earlier, it's the tape that really impresses me. And it's the body of work that he's been able to add to the forefront here. He is relatively new to tight end after mostly playing edge rusher. So I talked about that a little bit earlier. He made the positional switch. And that goes to show you the athleticism that he does have. He showed great growth since that switch and was Bryce Young's go-to option when things broke down in 2022. For instance, when Bryce Young would look outside the numbers, outside the hashes, he knew that when he needed to make a play in between everything, he could dump it off to Cameron Latu. Average athlete with iffy blocking ability, but because he started his career as an edge rusher, I think he's a better athlete than a lot of people give him credit for. Here's what the Athletic's Dane Brugler had to say about Cameron Latu. Average size speed profile must improve as a blocker, which is obviously important in Kyle Shanahan's offense, but his ascending confidence and smooth pass-catching skills make him a dependable chain mover. He should compete for a backup role as an NFL rookie with eventual low-end starting potential. So right now, in this moment that we're currently in, George Kittle turned it on with Brock Purdy the last half of the season. So you don't need him to be a high-level player. He can serve as a backup right now. Down the road, though, worst-case scenario is that he is an eventual low-end starter. Before we hop on out of here for this segment here, appreciate y'all for tuning into our draft content here. If you ain't subscribed, you ain't alive. Hit that subscribe button. We're breaking it down on the Niners front better than any other YouTube channel out there. Lock us in and subscribe today. Let's also take a look at the best players available heading into day 3, rounds 4 through 7, where the Niners have a bevy of picks, even though they moved up to number 87 to take Ji'Ayir Brown. Clark Phillips, cornerback out of Utah. Keely Ringo is still on the board, which really is surprising considering the player that he is, the athlete that he is, and where he played. Back-to-back national championships at Georgia. DeJuan Jones, if the Niners need an offensive tackle. Look, I talked about this the other day. There was some buzz that maybe the Niners are content with Nick Zakelj, Colton McKivitz, Matthew Pryor, and now it looks as though they might not draft a future right tackle. Surprising for sure. You look more so here at players like Tyler Scott, Antonio Johnson, Darius Rush, and A.T. Perry. I do think that depending on the future of Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco, did exercise the 5th-year option for Ayuk, which gives them 2 more years of team control with Ayuk, that they might take a wide receiver in this draft. If they don't, I won't be surprised. If they do, I won't be surprised. But some names to keep an eye on here for the best available players, according to our NFL draft expert in Tom Downey. My grade here for what the Niners did on day 2. I'm going to give them a B grade. I'm not overwhelmed by what they did. I'm not going to overreact to the pick of Jake Moody in the 3rd round because kicker was in need, right? I thought it was a little bit too early, but I like Cameron Latu. I love Ji'Ayir Brown. So I love Ji'Ayir Brown. Jake Moody, I had said, take him if you want him to be your kicker and see what he can do. But my boy Matthew Peterson here at Chat Sports made a good point. When you draft a kicker a little bit too early, confidence or the lack thereof enters their brain there, and that could affect them because we know it's so mental with a kicker. But then Cameron Latu, Ji'Ayir Brown, I like those 2 picks. Jake Moody a little bit too early. So I'm going to give the Niners a solid B grade here. What do you think? Grade the Niners draft so far here, 3 picks, A, B, C, D, or F. Let us know down in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe. We'll catch you tomorrow live here on the show. You don't want to miss it.